Welcome to Stories of Hope. I'm Christine Hotchkiss. Each week, I bring you stories of just that, hope. Stories of individuals who share their journeys, giving you hope. And in that, I find inspiration. So I believe everyone has a story that is unique, just like their fingerprints that put them on the paths and the journeys of their lives. Some find purpose. Every story can help, heal, inspire, educate, and of course, my big word of all is to give hope. Today, my guest is Matt Odie, and we're actually going to title this one, From Cancer to Coma to Survivor. A little bit about Matt. At the age of 24, Matt Odie was diagnosed with stage 3 testicular cancer. By the age of 25, he was in a 2-week non-induced coma where he faced multiple near-death experiences, having to relearn to live his entire life again. Wow. Through years of perseverance and hard work, Matt is now a keynote inspirational speaker, sharing his message and story to help individuals transform their setbacks. Oh, I love that word. Into their superpowers. Oh, another strong word. While teaching them how to create an impactful story, as we have already started, and a message to share to the world. Please help me welcome my guest today, Matt Odie. Welcome.
Wow, thank you. What an introduction, Christine. Thank you. I'm so happy to be on the show. So happy to, hopefully help your community and really just give value. I'll share some of my story today, but it's more about the lessons. And, I always say the greater the adversity you go through, the greater the opportunity you have in life to really persevere and become a better version of yourself and ultimately help other individuals as well. So thank you.
You know what? I couldn't agree more. Definitely. And the powerful words and sharing your story, like I do here, share stories of hope. They really do help people. And crazy enough, just recently, I had a couple of my guests reach out to me and said, Christine, I heard that our story again. And now I want to reach out to so-and-so, or that was so great. I didn't realize how powerful I was when I spoke. So when we hear our own story after we've told our story, it really does make sense. At least I have seen it that way. So let's get started on your story, because we went from cancer to coma to survivor, and that's huge, and all in such a young age. So I'm going to ask, where did you get diagnosed? I mean, you're only what, 25?
Yeah, so I was 24 at the time, actually, and I was a personal trainer. I was very healthy. This was back in 2016, so I'm 29 years old now, from Cleveland, Ohio. About 5 years ago, it was, throughout the summer, I was, eating the right foods, working out all the time, and all of a sudden, I just started dating my girlfriend at the time. We were doing, all these summer activities, hiking, kayaking, things like that, and I started to notice these minor back pains. And at 24 years old, you think you're invincible. You're like, okay, you're fine. Nothing's wrong. And obviously I never thought anything was wrong. I thought it was either lifting or just some type of back spasm, things like that. So as the summer got, progressed, my back pain got worse and worse and worse. And one night, I actually ended up puking up blood, got rushed in the emergency room. They found out I had lost 2/3 of the blood circulating in my body, which was actually equivalent to being shot with a gun. They gave me 6 bags of blood, rushed me into an emergency surgery, and the next morning I woke up and I'm thinking it was over because they thought it was an ulcer that was causing the bleeding in my stomach. But unfortunately, as I woke up, the doctor, came into the recovery room. He sat down and he said, Matt, we found an 11-centimeter tumor in your small intestine. We are almost 100% confident it is cancer, and we have to rush you to the main campus of the Cleveland Clinic immediately. So I was at my local hospital, and within that day, I was rushed to the clinic. And I just remember, though, receiving that news. It was just me and my parents at the time. And I remember looking over at them, crying. And, for me, I think I was in so much shock, but I felt like I had to have this strength and, this perseverance. And I kind of held all my emotions in, which actually I want to talk about because I think is actually not the way to go. So I was holding all my emotions in, thinking I needed to be strong for them, thinking I needed to be strong for when I shared this news to Lauren, my girlfriend, who had only been dating for 2.5 months, to all my friends who I know are going to come, visit me in the hospital. And, I did for about a day or 2 days. And then finally, as friends were flooding in, things like that, I think I was still in shock. And then all of a sudden Lauren arrives, and, I was so nervous because I didn't know if we were going to, what the relationship was going to entail. I mean, that's a big burden to put on her. And we basically broke down crying, and I knew right then she was going to be my rock throughout this entire journey. And, my first message to your audience is, especially men out there, do not be afraid to open up with what you're going through. I think a lot of our mental health, a lot of our PTSD or anxiety or our stress or our anger or depression in our life comes with holding in certain things that are vulnerable or certain things that are difficult in our lives. And it's not that you have to do what I'm doing by sharing on a podcast. Start by sharing with one person at a time, somebody you know, like, and trust. And I promise you, because this is what I did, is it's like all this baggage that was on your shoulder, it just releases. And it's not like it's all at once, but at least you can release your emotions. And, you know, for me, crying or whatever I needed to do, talking to somebody was one of the greatest things that could help me through this journey. And knowing that I had somebody there for me too was very, very important as well. So that's kind of how I got diagnosed. They rushed me in basically to that clinic, did about, I don't even know, probably 50 different tests. And that's where they found out I had the highest stage of testicular cancer. It's stage 3C. They say there is, or some say there is, some say there isn't a stage 4. Basically, my doctor said you have the highest stage of testicular cancer. And I was immediately put on 5 rounds of what's called BEP, which is very, very intense chemotherapy. So that's how it all kind of began.
Now, is this anything that's hereditary? I mean, you're 24. Like you said, you're invincible. Was there any history of it in your family? Because people always want to go back and say, oh, there's probably something in the family. But I'm finding out that's not always the case. It's sometimes our environment.
Not at all. And that's what I would tell especially any male right now who's, you know, in their 20s, if you see something abnormal, because I'm going to tell you right now, I had actually no symptom in my testicle, which is where 90+% is, you know, where people find those symptoms. So all I'm trying to tell you is if you do see any symptom down there, don't leave your ego out the door and just go get yourself checked out. You know, it probably isn't cancer, but at least you know that you can get it taken care of. Or if you have something, I always say, a symptom in your life that is abnormal that you've never had before and it lasts more than a week to a week and a half, once again, go get it checked out. I'm not saying it's cancer, but what I am saying is you can get it taken care of quicker than if it were to escalate. And for me, I know for a fact, I let my back pain go for about 3 months. And if I would have just not been stubborn and listened to Lauren or my parents and went and got it checked out, I'd probably be stage 1 instead of the highest stages of testicular cancer. So, and no, it was not hereditary in my family either. So I would say this, I'm not saying this is how all cancer forms, but the more I talk to a lot of people, I have a Facebook group now with over 3,000 members of cancer patients, survivors, and caregivers. And the more I talk to them, it really comes down to a lot of a stressful environment. And I'm not saying cancer is, a stressful environment creates cancer. But what I am saying is by you having a ton of stressful things in your life, creating a lot of anxiety or going through these stressful moments or not taking care of your health by not feeding yourself the proper foods or not working out. I'm telling you, I mean, I was the healthiest I've ever been and I still had cancer, but I was also mentally one of in the worst places in my life because I had just gotten out of a terrible relationship before I met Lauren. And I think a lot of that stress could have had to do with it. So I would say, I'm not saying that everything, but your environment could have a deal with a lot of illnesses in your life. So what I would just say is pay attention to your mental health, pay attention to your physical health, and you don't have to have genetics to get a certain type of cancer. So I had nobody in my family with testicular cancer.
I love that you say that because you had everything right on key. It wasn't hereditary. You were a health nut. You took care of yourself, ate right, environment part of it, relationship part of it, stress part. I'm sorry, who doesn't have stress? But yeah. The level of which we allow. And then, you have people say, oh, I do yoga. Well, I personally can't do yoga. For some reason, my brain doesn't want to shut down. And meditation, I've tried. So I do other things. I walk so then I can walk my thoughts out. But I find something too. And I'm older than you are. And for me, as I'm getting older, I'm like, I don't want my son to be taking care of me because I didn't take care of myself. So let's go on the next part of this chapter where you had gone into a coma, an uninduced coma. Tell me more.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had finished my 5 rounds of BEP. Anybody who knows chemotherapy, I pretty much had it, every symptom you can imagine, lost my hair, fatigue, nauseous, all the above. To make matters worse, in the middle of my chemotherapy, my 3-year-old puppy who was diagnosed with cancer, he passed away. So me and him were like battling this together. So it was a really mentally draining part of my journey. But, after I was done with chemotherapy, I basically sat down with my doctor and he said, all right, we have some good news and we have some bad news. And the good news was my tumor had shrunk from 11 centimeters to 3 centimeters. But the bad part is it's wrapped around what's called your inferior vena cava. Now, your inferior vena cava is basically a central vein that goes from the bottom of your upper body to your heart. He said, we're going to have to do a 10 to 12-hour surgery with 4 different surgeons to remove the vena cava, to remove the rest of the cancer that had spread to your body, because the cancer had spread to a lot of different parts of my body, and to remove the tumor. So the day comes, I get it's about 11-hour surgery. They end up having to remove my vena cava and, all the other cancer. And they basically open my, hip up from, my left side to my right side, pretty much all the way through. And what had happened was when they did that, my body went into what's called compartment syndrome. And it didn't happen right away. At first, it just swelled up. I remember waking up, I was in the surgery at about 145 pounds. Coming out of the surgery, I was close to 200 pounds in a matter of a couple of days because of all this swelling. My legs, my stomach, my face, everything was just like a balloon. And my doctor said, well, this draining should the swelling should drain out of your stomach. Just give it a week or two. And eventually I was out of the hospital. And all of a sudden, when it shouldn't have been stopping, it just stopped like that. I was in so much pain that night, got rushed into the emergency room, found out that they ended up having to drain 7 liters of fluid out of my stomach, which caused me to go into complete kidney and liver failure. I had a cone drilled inside of my head to relieve potential brain swelling. I had a catheter in my chest. I had a catheter in my neck because they thought I was going to be on dialysis the rest of my life. And that is where I fell into my 2-week non-induced coma. And really powerful story of faith that I'll share with you guys. And I don't push faith on anybody who's watching this, but I am Christian, and I just want to share, the power of how I woke up, actually. So my mom, who was very faith-based, she held 3 prayer services. Hundreds of people go to these prayer services. And from my understanding, people around the world were praying for me. And every single day, my parents and Lauren never left that hospital. They were with me every day. And Lauren would come over, she would hold my hand, and she would just pray for me that I'd wake up. And literally in the middle of the last prayer service, as hundreds of people were praying in the prayer service, hundreds and thousands of people were praying outside, in the world, and Lauren was praying all at the same time, was the day that I woke up from my coma. And for me, it was more or less God saying, Matt, this isn't the end of your journey. This is just the beginning. And, I'm not saying you have to go into a coma to experience this, but maybe you feel like you're in a rock bottom situation in your life. Is it financially? Is it your health? Or is it a relationship? And God is saying, listen, lean towards me and I will show you the way. I will show you the path. And that was my first direction of completely rechanging and rebuilding my life. So that's kind of how that happened. And, I was hoping, obviously, when I woke up, that was, a sign of me on the, direction of downhill. But unfortunately, I had a lot more complications involved as well. So a week later, they take the breathing tube out of my mouth, because I had a breathing tube in my mouth as well. And they go to take out one of the catheters in my neck. And as they go to take out the catheter, because I see I'm doing some progress, I end up having an arrhythm heartbeat, which is a 0.001% chance. They end up having to do CPR because I went to cardiac arrest. They do 8 minutes CPR on me, and I fell into another 1-week coma. At this point, I'm in the ICU for about almost a month now. And I wake up, and I remember waking up and I couldn't move anything, not my hands, not my feet, anything. And I realized that I had to relearn to live my entire life again. And for a good 2 weeks, from getting me from laying to my bed to taking my very first step again, it took 2 weeks with 4 different nurses every single day to help me do this. And, at this point, I'm actually 4 surgeries in too, because they had to do 3 surgeries to drain all the swelling out of my stomach. And finally, as I feel like I'm making the progress, I'm out of the ICU room. 3 days out of the ICU room, I end up looking down, they're like, hey, we were making progress. We're going to, I was in some type of recovery room. We're going to put you into your final stage of physical therapy. As they're wheeling me out, I'm not even kidding you. As they're wheeling me out, my stitches pop open, my spleen's sticking out, and I have to get rushed in to a 5th major surgery. This time, they couldn't close my skin back up, so I had to do what's called an open wound surgery. They had to put a football-sized mesh over my stomach, remove all of my abdominals, And I ended up back in the ICU room. And, at this point, if I wasn't in rock bottom at that point, I was in rock bottom at this point. So, for a lot of it, I think I was so drugged up that I couldn't kind of process everything that was going on. But this time, for some reason, I was fully clear when I woke up. And yeah, it was really tough. I think the scariest moment for me in that part was they ended up tying my hands and feet to the bed because they didn't want me touching my wound when they weren't around if I were to wake up. And for 2 days, because I had a breathing tube in my mouth, they knew I was awake, but they didn't know that I was good enough to like talk or anything. And I did. I knew I was because I knew everything that was going on. So for 2 days, I couldn't really get a hold of a nurse, and I had to sit there and I had to pray. I was like, listen, I could either give up. I told myself this. I said, I have two options here. I can give up on myself now. I fought as hard as I could, take me, or I'm in the lowest point in my life, just like I said before. And guess what that means? The only place I can go is up. And, after those 2 days when they, kind of took the ropes off and everything, I walked further than I'd ever done previous to any of the days in the past ICU room, any of the days in the recovery room. And God's miracle, I was out of that hospital a week and a half later. And a really powerful story is I met Lauren on March 17th of 2016. And after a 53 or 55 days stay in the hospital, I was released on March 17th of 2017, exactly the day that we met each other. I don't think it's a coincidence. I think it was, once again, somebody being brought into your life for a reason. And I guess my final message before we kind of talk further is, who is that person in your life that no matter what you're going through in life, they will be there for you. They'll be your guide, and then they'll help you when you're at your lowest point. And for me, it was my parents and Lauren. And I think a lot of times we might take those people for granted in our lives. And, if you're watching this today, just reach out to that person and show them how much you appreciate them in your life, because not only will it make their day, but it will really make your heart a lot more full as well. So that's been kind of my journey, throughout that process.
And I have a final question, but before I ask my final question, I'm very moved by all that you have said. Isn't it interesting how our bodies are a miracle, how they can give you, like a car, they give you warning signs that something's not right. You said it in the very beginning, to find out that what your body was giving a warning sign had nothing to do with an ulcer. It was completely unrelated. So I go with you on the make sure you get checked. Man, woman, get your bodies checked when you're not feeling something right. I'm stubborn too. And I'm like, you know what? I probably should go check that out. I'll do that tomorrow. Right.
Exactly.
And then, I'm visualizing you going through all this stuff, through the stitches popping open to starting all over and 5 surgeries. And I'm thinking to myself, you can't move. One of the points that you couldn't move. You're just a person inside of a body, right? A spirit inside of a body, someone would say. Was there any time in there? You did give a lot to say that you had 2 choices, which that's how I look at life too. Did you ever feel like you were just somebody inside of this body? You didn't understand why you were going through this. And I don't want to say why me, because now we know why you. Was there any point in there where you're just like, I'm in this body and I don't know how to get out kind of thing? Like, I want to escape.
Yeah. That's a great question. For me, yes, in a sense of like, I have this saying, it's kind of like a why me saying, everything in life happens for you, not to you. And what I mean by that is, you can look at the most difficult moments in your life and you can look at it in 2 different directions. You can say, why is this happening to me? Which means you make excuses. You say, I feel like I'm just this spirit in this body where, there's no way out. You're blaming God, or you're blaming the universe, or you're blaming other people. Or you can take this same exact scenario and say, yes, this is unfair. Yes, this is challenging, but how can I learn from this? How can I use this as a lesson? And then how can I use it to be a better version of myself? But more importantly, down the road, help the next person who might be going through a situation that's similar to mine, or somebody who can relate to what I'm trying to explain. And for me, yes, I had a lot of why me's, this is happening to me. But at the end of the day, my faith and my support, no doubt, when you're going through challenging moments in your life, you need to have faith. And once again, I'm saying whatever your faith is, but you need to have faith and you need to rely on your support systems. Because if you try to fight these battles alone, you are going to end up failing and you are not going to be able to complete this journey. So you need to say, hey, listen, who are the people in my life that I can trust, that I can, surround myself with, that is going to help me to get to where I need to be. And that's what I did. And I just relied on that. And it allowed me to say, hey, listen, cancer is not, this is where it got me out of my, feeling like a spiritual, just kind of in my body type of feel, is cancer was not just about me.
No, it's
There's
not.
so many more people in my life that I felt like if I gave up, I'd be giving up on them too. And when you can take that into account with whatever challenge you're going through, that these battles you're facing is not just about you, and you having, I'm not saying a pity party, because it's okay to grieve, it's okay to be upset, but it's not okay to stay in that place.
Exactly.
It's not okay to live in the struggle, to live in the pain. It's okay to grieve, but you need to get yourself out of it. And you need to be able to say, I need help, or I need to rely on my faith. And that's what I did. And that's what allowed me to really focus on one thing that I could do each day. I did not overwhelm myself. When I was out of that hospital, I was 110 pounds. I was a 185-pound personal trainer. I went down to 145, went up to 200 throughout surgery, and then dropped to 110 pounds in about 53 days. So I had 2 years after that of still rebuilding my life. And it was a lot of ups and downs. But once again, I was not by myself doing it. So.
No. And, you said everything that I say to other people. And I love that you said all of that. So yes, you have choices. And just because you don't want to do it doesn't mean that you can't or that you shouldn't, because laying there isn't going to say, okay, just take me. How many people say, oh, I just want to be here anymore, just take me. It doesn't work that way. And then you've got people who are they're fighting for their lives on a different level. And, that has another outcome too. Before I ask my final question, I want to say I appreciate your time. It's very powerful. Men don't talk about their journeys. They definitely don't talk about what you've talked about. And that opens up a lot. You said a lot that we don't do. Like, communication is huge. Even when we're emotional, man or woman, somewhere there was this thing of men shouldn't cry. And I'm like, well, I have a son, and I encouraged it because it relieves so much, right?
Oh my gosh, you couldn't be more correct. For all you men listening, it's okay to express your emotions. Yeah. I used to be that way. Trust me, I used to be that guy who's like, I don't care what happens, I'm going to be this tough guy. Stop it. Because guess what? The second you start sharing your vulnerability, what you're going through, guess what's going to happen? That next guy who's facing anxiety or depression, who's ready to do something harmful to himself, might be actually willing to open up now and be able to, move on with his life and actually cure whatever he's been facing. I'm telling you, and I said it before, a lot of our mental health comes from holding in things because we have this connotation or this perception that we're either a burden on people, or people think we're weak, or X, Y, and Z. But actually, the most people can relate the most to the people who actually are the most vulnerable and are willing to open up about it. When you're willing to share with what you're going through and not use it as like a why me or a pity party, but use it as actual help to other people, that is where people can relate to you. And that is when you see, look at all these movements and stuff. Like, people have opened up because other people have said, like, for example, in the sporting industry, somebody said they were, they'd open up and said they were gay. And then next thing you know, a week later, 2, 3, 4 other people open up and say the exact same thing. They would have never in their life said that. And it could have been a massive burden on their life. And that's just one example, but there's so many things out there that don't be afraid to share it. And once again, it doesn't have to be in podcasts. It doesn't have to be the world, but it can just be to somebody that you trust, and it will make a world of difference in your life.
Very true. 1,000% true. So before I ask my final question, knowing that you actually go around speaking, and if someone should want to reach out to you, do you have some contact information that you can provide for that?
My website is Mattode, Mattode, speaks.com. You can find all my social media stuff there as well. I have my Facebook account, my Instagram account, my LinkedIn account, and my YouTube channel as well. So If you want to connect with me, I would be more than happy to. And if you are watching this and you are either a caregiver, a survivor, or a patient of any type of cancer, please reach out to me. You can go onto my website and friend request me on Facebook, or you can email me at mao@mattodspeaks.com, and I will be happy to get you into the group, because we have now, I think, 3,200 members that are just filled with, all we do is we give love, support, and my objective, the unique part about this group is it's good for support, but I'm using it as me being a mentor to help everyone with whatever I've learned in the past. And guess what? I'm also a student as well, because there are so many incredible people that have incredible stories, incredible lessons in the group. So if you're watching this and then you've been impacted by cancer, please reach out to me. I'll be happy to help you out in any way possible.
Thank you. Now, my final question, which you may have already answered it through the whole entire interview, but if you can sum it up in less than a minute. I love asking this question. And that's because it makes me a better person. I think you said something in the very beginning about the experiences we go through, the people we meet, timing, or what have you, really make us a better person. Or we're learning different experiences in life and how to do this thing called life, because there's no book you can just go check out and says, this is what's going to happen in this chapter of your life. This is what's going to happen when you meet this kind of person, right? There's no such thing, and there never will be. It's a journey of our own. So my final question is this: what message would you like to leave based on your journey?
Ooh. So you have what's called Stories of Hope. Mm-hmm. And I have a really cool acronym for HOPE, and that is help one person every day.
Oh, I love it.
HOPE, help one person. And I will give credit to the person who I found this from. His name is Jim Quick. So I can't give all myself credit, but I love using it because it is such an incredible acronym of, when you help one person every day, you create hope in their life. And guess what happens? By you helping that person, they could go out and help the next. So by you helping 10 could potentially actually be helping 100 people. By you helping 100 could actually help 1,000 people. Do you get what I'm saying? Where that person helps another and another and another. So by helping one person every day, don't ever underestimate the power of just giving back. And, I know we want to help millions and millions of people, but start with one. Make an impact in their life. So,
well, it goes with what we all know Oprah has said. It takes a mustard seed, as small as it is, but look what it grows. And for me, many years before I even decided to do the Stories of Hope thing, if you were to call my phone and hear my message, it says, make a difference one person, one day at a time. So it was all instilled there a long time ago. And I've kept it on there for years. People are like, I love your message. And I'm like, I don't remember what it is. So I've had to ask, because I don't listen to my own message. But it's so very true, and it's very powerful. So yeah, thank you for that message, and thank you for your the opportunity to actually learn more about you and the journey of cancer, and the hope that you gave, and the help that you're willing to offer.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. And to my listeners, or if you see this in some other area, which it's possible, I thank you for supporting me and listening to another amazing journey of an individual who's making a difference in his life and those he touches every day, however he's doing that. If you have a story you want to share, know someone who has a story, or you have an organization in your community that's making a difference and you want them to be heard, email me to the address of stories@ChristineHotchkiss.com. Until next time, everyone, I wish you well, and you take care.